Hi there, I'm Andrew. Welcome to Urban Rider for another look at some of the world's finest riding gear. Today we're going to be talking about the Davida Koura helmet. This is the brand's first full-face helmet, despite having been around for several decades and making a name as the leading open-face helmet manufacturer and one of the last remaining British helmet manufacturers that we have. So it took them a while to get around to this full face, but what they've achieved is something that's really quite bold, it's quite different, there is definitely a lot to talk about here. But really we wanted to get this helmet in and review it because it's actually been out for a few months, but we haven't really heard much about it. There's no reviews that I found out there. So for those of you curious about it, we wanted to give you the chance to learn a little bit more. So I've been riding with it for a few days, which has been great, and I can tell you more about how it actually works. But first of all, let's go through the sort of headline stats and figures. So the price point is £435 as a starter, and that gets you the plain colours, and it goes up if you want colours like this one here. This helmet carries the same sort of premium quality of finish when it comes to things like the shell that Davida are renowned for. So this is a fiberglass shell. We've seen this in some of their open face helmets, and their open face helmets have been very highly respected because of the quality of finish and the standard of safety that they offer. And it's great to see that then translated into a full face. And Davida have definitely achieved that when it comes to the safety, because this helmet is the only one, as far as we're aware, in this retro full face part of the market that has an ACU Gold Standard Racing sticker on the back of it, which is a real achievement. So this is suitable for ECE approval, DOT approval, and the ACU sticker as well. So this is therefore suitable for track day riding, for those enthusiasts who like to ride around on Goodwood Revival and vintage bikes and stuff. This would be a really great option because frankly otherwise you've got to wear something from one of the sort of premium race brands, which is going to look completely at odds with everything else that you're wearing. They've also been very keen to point out that this is the most compact full-face road legal shell that there is, and that is generally true in certain respects. So in terms of the width, this is very narrow indeed, and height as well. It's a very compact shell, so well done Davida, because it's very hard to make a shell that is all those things and still road legal and safe, because you need a very good quality shell to get away with being smaller and basically still making it a safe helmet. So they've done really well there, but I suppose the overall appearance of the helmet doesn't necessarily seem particularly small and compact because of this jaw guard. So that's the big talking point of the helmet. The Koura is this jaw guard piece, which has these very distinctive grills on the front of it that sort of resemble, I don't know, like a medieval knight's helmet or something. So the fit of the helmet is pretty consistent with Davida's standard sizing in the open face helmets that they do. So I'm a 57.5, medium should fit a 57 and a 58, and this did fit me okay, but I would say the shape that this accommodates to is perhaps slightly more rounded than it is oval. So generally the industry standard is this sort of intermediate oval halfway house that fits everybody, and as someone with a more oval head, this did leave a lot of pressure on the front and back of my head, and that was noticeable. Really noticeable on the first ride, but after a couple of rides it does start to bed in, and that's usually the case with the leather interiors that Davida offer. Straight out the box they feel a little bit more uncompromising than the squidgy nylon that you get on most helmets, and that can be off-putting, but if you bear with it and if you stick with your purchase and you ride with it a few times, it very quickly becomes comfortable, and in terms of longevity it does last longer. It doesn't continue to compact in the same way the nylon does. It's often very good for soundproofing as well. One of the downsides to leather, of course, it's not as breathable. So if it's a very hot day and you're sweating, that is a bit of a problem and it's not particularly pleasant, but it does give the helmet this premium feel, and it's good for, I'd say, most of the UK riding temperatures. So onto the performance of the helmet itself. Well, it's not the most practical helmet. I'm going to say it like it is, and the reason for that is really this sort of uncompromising jaw guard and visor combo. So the visor itself is very thin. It's not particularly well sealed. It's ECE approved in and of itself, so that's something, but it basically let in water when it was raining. You can just see from the top of the helmet it doesn't have a uniform seal around it. So there's definitely, the budget is not going into the visor on this helmet. That is clear, I think, when you ride with it. So a lot of air, a lot of noise just comes through from there. But apart from that, clearly the other culprit is this jaw guard. So if we stop that for a moment, the jaw guard itself is basically a massive air intake in the shape of it. So the difference in angle between the top and the bottom is really pronounced. If I just grab another helmet, so wait there 1 second, don't go anywhere. There you go. If I grab another helmet from a different brand, this is sort of just chosen at random, but you see the top and the bottom of the jaw guard are pretty much vertically aligned, and that is something that you don't really think about, and when you wear it, it just sort of tends to fit. I found on the Davida that my nose was much closer to the top of the jaw guard because it was leaning backwards, and the chin had really a lot of space. So this sort of acts like a massive scoop. So all the air that you encounter as you're riding along gets sort of drawn in, and that's also teamed up with the massive air intakes that you have on the jaw guard anyway, which are always in the open position. And that means, well, you don't get any fogging, so that's definitely a plus. So you don't really have to worry about that despite not having a pin lock. However, it really does add to a lot of noise and a lot of turbulence. And actually that's really weird because, as I said, Davida's open face is probably quieter than most full face helmets, and it's the quietest open face bar none. So it's weird then that their full face is the complete sort of inverse of that. But I wanted to highlight that point, and I think it's fair to do that because it does say on their site it's a very quiet helmet, and I don't want people buying from us anyway who are buying this because they want it to be really quiet, really practical day to day, as an equivalent to some of the sort of dedicated street helmets out there that are sort of modern tech spec. This isn't really that. This is something that's retro inspired, and basically you're sacrificing slightly in terms of those creature comforts for this sort of uncompromising sort of retro look. And the visor feels like a sort of 70s visor that you used to get on the old kind of Bell helmets and things like that. And the jaw guard can't be closed, and you know the jaw guard also has that shape to it. So this isn't going to be great on really cold days if you're riding on motorway speeds, and that's just something I want to sort of highlight to bear in mind. A couple of other little niggles just annoyed me, like the fact that the visor doesn't have a sort of ratchet system to it, so it doesn't feel particularly convincing that it's going to sort of stay up long term. But the other thing was this latch here. So on the side at the back is where the lever is for your thumb, and it's very small. It's also quite sharp, but it's quite hard to actually locate. You can't really feel it with a thick pair of winter gloves. And when you then do locate it and push it forwards, it sort of gets, your finger gets caught on the bolt that's there to actually hold the visor in the down position. So that's just not particularly ergonomically designed, and I've not seen that on any other visor. I don't know why it couldn't be at the front sort of 3/4 section, and then that would push up nice and neatly, whereas here you're sort of pushing it at the wrong angle because you want to push it up, not forwards. So anyway, that's sort of a fairly minor point, I suppose. The other thing is this jaw guard. So it's got these huge open grills, we've said several times, and they don't have a sort of inlet on the chin bar itself. The way it works is the air gets channeled up between the EPS liner and the shell, and that's actually a really good thing. That's very clever. So it basically directs the air up the visor, which stops it from fogging. So that works quite well. In terms of the visors, apparently there are also smoke ones. We didn't have any to show you for the review that we're doing, but they will be available, and that will definitely add quite a cool look to the helmet overall. So Davida have also cut out slightly on the back here of the shell. You can see the sort of underside has a very distinctive and unusual stepped line to it, as opposed to just a sort of linear gradient. And this cut out at the back is supposed to help you really stretch your neck in the upwards position when you're tucked down on the bike, so that you can get really low onto the tank for racing and see ahead nice and clearly. So that's the theory anyway. It's slightly offset by the very large jaw guard, which, to revert to the helmet I had previously, is a good 1.5 inches higher in its sort of overall chunkiness than most other helmets. So really it stems to whether you, if you're a fan of the brand, I think you're going to be a fan of this helmet, but you also need to sort of buy into the styling of it as well. It's very distinctive, and I quite like that in some respects. The fit of it, as I say, just bear in mind, it's a leather interior, so you need to be a little bit more patient, but the sizing is true to the size guide that's going to flash up on the screen in a sec, and you can also check that over at urbanrider.co.uk. Double D-ring fastening mechanism inside. Loads of colours, loads of interior choices. You can refine the fit with different thickness of cheek pads and stuff as well, but they'd be an extra to the standard price on the helmet. So leave us your comments, your thoughts, your feedback. We love hearing from you guys on these items. I think this is definitely something quite interesting from Davida, so really keen to hear what you guys have to say. And yeah, so hopefully we will see you again soon. There's loads of video reviews coming out of more of the world's finest riding gear. So thanks for watching. Goodbye.